The champagne flute shattered against the floor, spraying crystal shards across Dominic Sterling's Italian leather shoes. Around him, the charity gala froze. 500 pairs of eyes turned toward the commotion. But Dominic barely noticed. His phone was pressed against his ear, his father's voice crackling through the speaker with words that made his blood run cold. "Get to Mount Sinai Hospital. Now." Your father collapsed. Victoria Ashford's perfectly manicured hand touched his elbow. "Dominic? What's wrong?" He looked at his betrothed and felt nothing but the desperate need to be anywhere else. "I have to go." The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and desperation. Dominic's younger sister Emma was already there, mascara streaking her cheeks. "They said it was a stroke. Dad's asking for you." Vincent Sterling looked smaller in the hospital bed, diminished in a way that terrified Dominic more than any boardroom battle ever had. At 68, his father had always seemed invincible, a titan who'd built Sterling Industries from a single software company into a $50 billion empire. Now, with 4 tubes snaking from his arms, he looked mortal. "Don't look at me like I'm already dead," Vincent rasped. "Close the door. We need to talk." Dominic obeyed, his heart hammering. "The doctors say I have maybe 2 years if I'm lucky. 6 months if I'm not." Vincent's words were brutal in their clarity. "Which means we're out of time for your little rebellion." "Dad, let's not do this now." "When then?" Vincent's good hand slammed against the bed rail. "I've given you 28 years, Dominic. 28 years of the best schools, the best opportunities, grooming you for this moment. And you've wasted the last 3 years chasing some non-profit girl like you're in a romance novel." Dominic felt his jaw clench. "Her name is Maya. I don't care if her name is Helen of Troy. She's not Victoria Ashford, and she's not part of the plan." Vincent's eyes bored into his son. "The betrothal contract your mother and I signed with the Ashfords when you were 12 isn't just some antiquated tradition. It's ironclad. Marry Victoria, take over as CEO, or forfeit everything. The company, the inheritance, the Sterling name. You'll have nothing. You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Vincent's voice dropped. "This company is my legacy, Dominic. It's your legacy. 15,000 employees depending on us. Your mother's memory woven into every brick of the Sterling Tower. Don't throw it away for a girl who protested outside our headquarters with signs calling us corporate parasites." The machines beeped steadily in the silence that followed. Dominic's mind raced back 3 years to that protest. Maya in ripped jeans and passionate fury, her sign reading "People over Profits." He'd been on his way to a board meeting and had stopped, transfixed by her fire. Later that week, he'd found her at the community center she ran and offered to fund one of her programs. She'd thrown his check back in his face. "Your money doesn't fix the systems you break," she'd said. It had taken him 6 months to win her trust. Another 6 before their first kiss. 3 years of stolen moments, secret meetings, living a double life because he'd been too afraid to choose. Now the choice was being forced upon him. "I need your answer in 3 months, Vincent said. "The board is meeting. Marry Victoria by Christmas Eve, or I'll name your cousin Jeffrey as successor. Those are your options." Dominic left the hospital in a daze. His phone buzzed constantly. Victoria checking on him, his assistant updating him on rescheduled meetings, board members already circling like sharks. He ignored them all and sent one text. "Can you meet me? Our place. I need you." The community garden in Brooklyn was closed when Dominic arrived. But he had a key. Maya was already there, sitting on their bench under the fairy lights they'd strung together, wearing the Columbia hoodie he'd bought her. "Your father?" she asked as he sat beside her. "Stroke. He's alive, but—" Dominic's voice broke. Maya's hand found his, and he felt the tears he'd been holding back finally spill over. "He gave me an ultimatum. 3 months to marry Victoria and take over the company, or lose everything." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "So this is it, then. The thing we always knew was coming." "Maya!" "No, let me finish." She turned to face him, and he could see her eyes were wet too. "I always knew this was temporary, Dominic. You're a billionaire heir. I'm a girl from the Bronx whose parents clean offices for a living. This was never going to work. Don't say that. He gripped her hand tighter. I'll walk away. From all of it. The company, the money, everything. I choose you. And then what? Her voice rose with emotion. You've never lived without your father's money, Dominic. You went to Exeter and Yale. You summer in the Hamptons. You think you can just slum it with me in my rent-controlled apartment? How long before you resent me for everything you gave up? That's not fair. It's completely fair. She stood, pacing between the raised garden beds. And what about the 15,000 people who work for Sterling Industries? What about your sister? Your father's legacy? You'd throw all that away. And for what? So we can prove some point about love conquering all. So what are you saying? Dominic felt anger mixing with his desperation. That I should just marry Victoria? Forget about us. Maya's face crumpled. I'm saying that some love stories don't get happy endings. I'm saying that maybe we were always just a beautiful detour, but you have responsibilities that are bigger than us. She wiped her eyes roughly. I won't let you destroy yourself for me, Dominic. I won't be that person. You don't get to make this decision alone. And neither do you. She was crying openly now. Don't you see? Your father's right. I'm not Victoria Ashford. I can't navigate your world. I can't be the wife who stands next to you at galas and knows which fork to use. I'd embarrass you, and you'd hate yourself for being embarrassed, and eventually, you'd hate me too. That's not true, isn't it? She laughed bitterly. Last month at that restaurant, Le Bernardin, I didn't know we were supposed to wait for everyone to be served. The waiter looked at me like I was trash, and you looked away. Dominic felt the accusation hit home because it was true. He had looked away, ashamed of his own embarrassment.
Maya, I'm sorry.
I know you are, but sorry doesn't change the fact that your world and mine don't mix. She picked up her bag. Go marry Victoria, Dominic. Take over your company. Do what you were always meant to do. And maybe in another life we could have worked. She kissed him once, soft and final. And then she was gone, disappearing through the garden gate before he could find words to stop her. The next 2 weeks were hell. Dominic threw himself into wedding preparations with Victoria, going through the motions like a zombie. The Ashford family had spared no expense. They'd booked St. Patrick's Cathedral, hired celebrity wedding planners, sent invitations to everyone who mattered in New York society. Victoria was gracious about his obvious misery. They met for cake tastings where she made pleasant conversation while he sat silent. They reviewed seating charts while he stared out the window. They posed for engagement photos, and he wondered if anyone could see how dead he felt inside. You really love her, don't you? Victoria asked one evening. They were in her living room, supposedly reviewing flower arrangements, but Dominic had been staring at the same hydrangea centerpiece for 20 minutes. He looked up, startled. What? You're Maya. Victoria set down her tablet and poured them both whiskey. You really love her. Victoria, It's okay. You can admit it. She settled into the armchair across from him. We've known each other since we were children, Dominic. I'm not blind. Then why are you going through with this? Victoria was quiet for a moment, swirling her whiskey. Same reason you are, I suppose. Duty. Family. The grand plan our parents laid out for us before we were old enough to have opinions. She took a long drink. Can I tell you something? In complete confidence. Dominic nodded, confused. Victoria pulled out her phone and scrolled through her photos, then handed it to him. The photo showed Victoria with another woman, striking, with short dark hair and paint-stained hands. Both of them laughing in what looked like a Paris apartment. Her name is Isabelle Moreau. We met at Oxford 7 years ago. She's a photographer and artist. She lives in Paris, and she's the love of my life. Dominic stared at the photo, then at Victoria, his mind reeling. You're in love with someone else? Yes. Victoria's smile was sad. Surprise. Turns out we're both prisoners of the same gilded cage. She took another drink. My parents don't know, obviously. The Ashfords have very specific ideas about acceptable daughters. Marrying you checks all their boxes, merges two dynasties, secures my trust fund, keeps up appearances. And Isabel understands. Or she says she does. But I see it in her eyes every time I have to fly back to New York for another wedding planning session. I'm losing her, piece by piece. Victoria, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I made my choice a long time ago, just like you're making yours now. She retrieved her phone and looked at Isabel's photo with such longing that Dominic felt his heart break for her. We both know how this works, Dominic. People like us don't get to marry for love. We marry for legacy. They sat in silence, two people trapped by expectations, drowning in expensive whiskey and regret. Finally, Victoria spoke again. There has to be another way. What do you mean? I don't know, but there has to be something we're not seeing. Some option beyond just surrender. She leaned forward. Your father's contract says you have to marry me and take over Sterling Industries. Right? Right. But does it specify how you have to run the company? Dominic felt something stir in his chest. The first hint of hope in 2 weeks. I don't. I'd have to check with the lawyers. Then check. Victoria's eyes were bright now, strategic. Because I'm thinking, what if we got married exactly as planned, but we changed everything else? Over the next week, Dominic barely slept. He met with lawyers at midnight, poring over the betrothal contract with forensic precision. He brought in accountants, restructuring specialists, and social impact consultants, swearing them all to secrecy. Victoria helped, her business mind sharper than he'd ever given her credit for. They worked side by side, fueled by coffee and desperation, building something impossible. The missing piece was Maya. Dominic tried calling her 17 times. She blocked his number. He went to the community center. She'd taken a leave of absence. He sent letters to her apartment. They came back unopened. Finally, he showed up at her parents' building in the Bronx at 6 in the morning and waited. Her mother, Rosa Rodriguez, found him sitting on the stoop. She was a small woman in a cleaning company uniform, and she looked at Dominic with suspicion. You're the Sterling boy. Yes, ma'am. I need to see Maya. My daughter cried for 3 days straight because of you. Why should I let you near her? Because I'm trying to fix things. Please, Mrs. Rodriguez. I know I don't deserve it, but please. 5 minutes. Rosa studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Apartment 4C. But if you make her cry again, I don't care how rich you are. I'll kill you myself. Maya answered the door in pajamas, her eyes red-rimmed, and when she saw him, she tried to slam it shut. Dominic caught it with his hand. Maya, please, just listen. There's nothing to say. You're getting married in 2 weeks. I know, but not the way you think. He pushed into the apartment before she could stop him. Victoria and I have a plan. It's crazy and it might not work, but I need you to trust me. I need you to believe that I'm not giving up on us. Dominic, Sterling Industries is going to become a benefit corporation. We're restructuring everything, redirecting 40% of profits to social programs and community development. We're expanding the board to include community representatives, labor leaders, and nonprofit directors. He grabbed her hands. Including you, as Director of Social Impact, with a budget of hundreds of millions to actually change things. Maya pulled away. You're insane. Maybe, but I couldn't choose between you and my duty, so I'm choosing both. Differently. He kept talking, the plan spilling out. Victoria and I will marry, legally, publicly, to satisfy the contract and the board. But it'll be a professional partnership, nothing more. We'll live separately. We'll be free to have our own personal lives. And together, we'll transform Sterling Industries into something that actually matters. And your father? The board? They'll never allow it. They can't stop it. I've had 12 lawyers review the contract. It says I have to marry Victoria and take over as CEO. It says nothing about how I run the company once I'm in charge. Dominic felt manic energy coursing through him. The first thing I do as CEO is implement the restructuring. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be done. Maya sat down, looking overwhelmed. This is insane. I know. You're asking me to work for you, to be part of this world I hate. I'm asking you to change it from the inside, to have actual power instead of just protesting from the outside. He knelt in front of her. I know you don't want my charity. This isn't charity, Maya. This is real. A real position, real authority, real money to make a real difference. Everything you've always fought for. And us. Her voice was small. What about us? I don't know, he admitted. I'll be married. Legally, if not actually. It'll be complicated and messy and probably a disaster. But I'm not giving up on you. I'm not choosing between you and everything else anymore. I'm choosing all of it. Maya looked at him for a long time. You're really going to do this? With or without you? But I'd rather do it with you. She laughed. A broken, disbelieving sound. You're completely insane. Is that a yes? I don't know yet. Ask me after you pull off this insanity. St. Patrick's Cathedral was packed on Christmas Eve. 500 guests filled the pews, Manhattan's elite in their finest, photographers jockeying for position. Dominic stood at the altar, watching Victoria walk down the aisle. She looked every inch the perfect bride, but when their eyes met, he saw the same terror he felt. The ceremony proceeded like clockwork. They exchanged vows that meant nothing and everything. The priest pronounced them husband and wife. And then, just as Dominic was supposed to kiss his bride, he turned to face the congregation. Before we continue, I have an announcement. The cathedral erupted in whispers. In the front row, his father gripped his wheelchair armrests, his face already reddening. Victoria's hand found Dominic's, squeezing tight. Victoria and I are honored to begin this partnership, Dominic said, his voice carrying through the vaulted space. And we're going to start it by honoring the values we both believe in. Effective immediately upon my assumption of CEO, Sterling Industries will restructure as a benefit corporation, with a focus on social responsibility and community impact. The whispers became shouts. His father was trying to stand, restrained by Emma. The Ashfords looked confused. Board members were pulling out phones, already calling lawyers. 40% of all Sterling Industries profits will be redirected to fund social programs, community development, and worker benefits, Dominic continued. The board will expand to include representatives from the communities we serve, and we're creating a new position, Director of Social Impact, to oversee our transformation into a force for actual good. A screen descended behind the altar, and Maya's face appeared, her official headshot, professional but still radiating fire. I'm proud to announce that Maya Rodriguez, founder of the Bronx Community Development Initiative, will be joining our leadership team in this role. The cathedral exploded. Half the guests were on their feet shouting, the other half applauding. Vincent Sterling's voice rose above the chaos. This is a travesty. I'll have you removed. The board will never. The board has no legal grounds to stop me, Dominic said calmly. I've had 12 lawyers review the contract. I'm fulfilling every requirement. Marrying Victoria. Taking over as CEO. How I run the company afterward is my prerogative as chief executive. Victoria stepped up beside him. And our marriage, she said, her voice steady and clear, while legal and binding, will be a professional partnership. Dominic and I will maintain separate residences and are free to pursue our own personal lives. We're redefining what marriage and partnership can mean in the 21st century. The chaos intensified. Guests were streaming toward the exits. Others were pushing forward, demanding explanations. Through it all, Dominic searched for Maya. She was standing at the back of the cathedral, tears streaming down her face, and he couldn't tell if she was horrified or proud or furious or all three. If you're enjoying this story of love, duty, and unexpected choices, hit that like button and drop a comment telling us what you think Dominic should do next. Would you make the same choice? Let us know below. The reception was a disaster. Half the guests didn't show. The other half spent the evening in heated arguments. His father refused to speak to him. His mother's family called him a disgrace to her memory. Jeffrey smirked in the corner, already plotting his eventual takeover when this social experiment inevitably failed. But some people understood. Emma hugged him so hard he couldn't breathe, whispering, "Mom would be proud." 3 board members approached Victoria to say they'd been waiting for someone to shake things up, and Maya finally answered his texts. Outside. Now. He found her in the snow-dusted courtyard behind the Plaza Hotel. She was shivering in just her dress. "You're completely insane," she said. "I know. You just blew up your entire life on live television. I know. Your father will never forgive you. Half of New York society thinks you've lost your mind." She was crying and laughing at the same time. "You married someone else for a professional partnership and put me on your board without even asking if I wanted the job. I know. I'm sorry. I should have asked. She kissed him, hard and desperate and full of everything they'd been holding back for weeks. When they broke apart, they were both crying. "This is never going to work," Maya said. "Probably not. It's going to be complicated and messy and everyone's going to hate us. Almost definitely. I'm going to make your life hell, Sterling. I'm going to push for changes you're not ready for. I'm going to challenge you on everything. I'm going to be the thorn in your side that never stops pushing. I'm counting on it." He pulled her closer. "So is that a yes? You'll take the position? On one condition. I want full autonomy. Real power, not just a figurehead position. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to actually change things. Deal? And I'm not your mistress, Dominic. I'm not some secret you keep. If we're going to try this, whatever this is, it has to be honest. I don't want you to be my mistress. I want you to be my partner. In everything." He cupped her face. "I know it's not a fairy tale. I know it's unconventional and probably insane. But I'd rather have complicated and real with you than perfect and hollow with anyone else." She kissed him again, softer this time. "You're still insane. Does that mean you forgive me? Ask me in 6 months. If you haven't destroyed the company by then." 6 months later, Dominic stood in a community center in the South Bronx, watching Maya cut the ribbon on Sterling Industries' first community development hub. The space was beautiful, bright, and modern, with computer labs and job training facilities. It had cost $3 million, funded entirely by Sterling Industries' new social impact division. The changes hadn't been easy. His father still wasn't speaking to him. 3 board members had resigned in protest. The stock had initially dropped 12% before recovering when investors realized that the social programs were actually generating positive PR and customer loyalty. Forbes had run a cover story, "The Radical Heir, Dominic Sterling's Gamble on Conscious Capitalism." But it was working. Sterling Industries had opened 5 community centers across New York. They'd raised minimum wage for all employees by 30%. They'd created a profit-sharing program that made janitors into stakeholders. And Maya was transforming from reluctant corporate employee into a force of nature, bulldozing through bureaucracy to make real change happen. Victoria had flown to Paris last month and come back with Isabel. They'd had dinner together, the 4 of them, and it had been surprisingly nice. Isabel was brilliant and funny, and she looked at Victoria the way Dominic looked at Maya. They talked about their unconventional arrangement, all agreeing that happiness mattered more than convention. "You did good, Sterling," Maya said, appearing at his elbow. She wore a blazer now, concession to her corporate role, but still paired it with her old jeans and Converse sneakers. "This is really good." "We did good," he corrected. "I just signed the checks. You made it real." She smiled up at him, and surrounded by people whose lives they were actually changing, Dominic felt something he hadn't felt in months. "Hope. Your father called me yesterday," Maya said. "What?" "He called my office. Wanted to know if I was corrupting his son or if you'd always been this idealistic under the corporate polish." She laughed. "I told him you were always this stubborn. You just needed permission to show it." "What did he say?" "He hung up on me, but he called back an hour later and asked about the South Bronx housing initiative. I think he was actually curious." Maya squeezed his hand. "It's not forgiveness, but it's something. I'll take it." They stood together watching kids stream into the new computer lab, their excitement palpable. This was what made it all worth it. Not the board meetings or the society pages, but this. Real people, real change, real impact. I love you, Dominic said quietly. Maya looked up at him, her eyes soft. I know. I love you too, you beautiful disaster. Still think this can't work? Oh, it's definitely not going to work, she said cheerfully. But we're going to fail spectacularly while changing the world, so that's something. He laughed and kissed her there in the community center, surrounded by the future they were building together. Messy and complicated and imperfect and real. It wasn't the ending anyone had expected, but it was theirs, and that made it perfect enough. Outside, snow had started falling again over the Bronx. Inside, the ribbon cutting continued, speeches were made, and photos were taken. And somewhere in Park Avenue, in separate apartments that suited them both fine, Victoria was video chatting with Isabel while Dominic's father reviewed the quarterly reports that showed, against all odds, that doing good really could be good business. The choice had shocked everyone. But 6 months later, watching the world slowly change around them, Dominic thought maybe that had always been the point. Sometimes the most revolutionary act wasn't choosing between two paths. Sometimes it was refusing to choose at all and building something entirely new instead. And as Maya pulled him toward the celebration, her laughter bright and genuine and free, Dominic knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. The one no one expected, the one everyone said was impossible, the one that was perfectly, beautifully, complicatedly theirs. If this story touched your heart or made you think differently about love, duty, and the choices we make, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next upload. And please, take a moment to comment below. What would you have done in Dominic's position? Would you choose love, duty, or find your own third path? Your thoughts matter to us, so share them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the impossible is just waiting for someone brave enough to try. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.